and welcome to the Popcorn Bucket List, the podcast that keeps your movie bucket list up to date because those 1,000 movies to see before you die lists are just too daunting. I'm your host and angry French revolutionary Gracie, and with me is Daryl, who is not throwing away his shot, and Sarah, who definitely wouldn't cook you into a meat pie. And today we have a special guest. His name is George, and he is on a mission from God. How are you guys doing today?
Good. How are y'all?
Doing all right.
So, George, tell us a little bit about yourself so our audience members know why your opinion matters.
Oh, sure. Well, I have the paperwork. I have a degree, a BFA in film/digital video from University of the Arts in Philadelphia. Freelanced for a bit, did a lot of music videos. I feel like if I was better at making music, that would have been the path I would have chosen, but I was better at making movies, so I tried to combine them as much as I could. I was definitely an avid denier of liking musicals, even though I always did, and now I accept my being and myself, and I'm super excited to be here. Thank you all for having me.
Thanks for being here.
We are honored, George. Most of us, I think you're the only one with the actual film degree. Some of us went a roundabout because I'm pretty sure, Daryl, you have a theater.
I have a theater of a film concentration, so it's not a real film degree.
And Sarah and I have film concentrations. So.
They're definitely all very useful.
Yes, very, very
we
useful.
all work in.
Look at us.
Look at us now.
Follow your dreams.
Yep.
So last week we covered the modern silent film in the thread of A Quiet Place Part 2. This week we will jump to the other side of the spectrum with musicals. Musicals have been a part of film's history since the first line of dialogue was uttered on screen. In 1927, The Jazz Singer was released by Warner Brothers. This was the first film to include an audio track and include non-diegetic music as well as diegetic music. The film only has a short sequence of spoken dialogue, but that was revolutionary at the time. So from there, it went haywire. We never looked back. This past weekend, In the Heights had a disappointing debut with only $11 million coming in for this box office, coming in second to A Quiet Place's second weekend run. It was actually really sad to see. I know all four of us went and saw In the Heights, and I think I can say as a podcast, we all enjoyed it for, some of us not being as musically inclined in movies. Cough, cough, Daryl. This is the one in high school. This is the one and only time I think Sarah and I trumped him in movies seen in a genre.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. This is not my forte.
But I think I spent my week rewatching some of my favorite musicals. I don't know about you guys. I know Sarah watched one for the first time. Sarah, do you want to talk a little bit about what you watched this weekend?
I finally watched La La Land after hearing so much about it. Mostly good. So, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I thought it was gorgeous and heartbreaking and a lot of fun. Just visually, I thought it was stunning, and I loved the lighting really stood out to me. I felt like I was watching something on stage. It felt like stage lighting, which I really, really loved. But yeah, I thought it felt a lot like old musicals with the jazz and the dancing, and overall amazing movie. I'm sure we'll get more into it later.
Well, what I also liked about La La Land, and I noticed in The Heights, and this is such a subtle thing, was the title card. I remember when the title card came on in La La Land, and I was like, this is just like the old ones. I got so excited. And most musicals do a title card, but they're normally animated with sparkles, and Mamma Mia is coming to mind. And but La La Land and In the Heights did a pretty generic musical title card, and I loved that.
Mhm.
It kind of sets the mood for me that like, hey, you're about to watch a 3-hour musical. Hope you're ready, you know? But I guess the first question I should start our discussion is what makes a movie a musical? And, you know, I think that that's probably what should start us off, because I think that will help us set our boundaries of what we're talking about today. Daryl, you want to go first? Since, you know.
Sure. Yeah, since I know the least about them. Um, yeah, I guess a musical is any film where like music is, it's a very important part of the story. It typically helps to actually tell the story. The difference between a musical and movies that have like lots of music, like something like a biopic like Bohemian Rhapsody, not really a musical because although the music does drive the film, it's not people breaking out into song and dance randomly for no reason like you're supposed to do in a musical. I feel
Did
like
you
in a
see
musical, the
Rocket Man?
randomness is about it. No, I've
Did you?
never seen Rocket Man.
Okay. Did anybody see Rocket Man?
Nope.
For some reason, I feel like they broke out into song a little bit more. Like I think they entered more like
Yeah,
dream
based on the
like
trailer, I think they did.
sequences. At least that's, yeah, from the trailer. That I don't want to talk about it obviously since none of us have seen it, but
Yeah, don't
like
want to
that
steal
one
them wrong.
I would put that one in musical, but Bohemian Rhapsody I would not. So
Yeah, so I think that's a big thing is that like it's kind of randomly breaking out in the song and nobody questioning it. I mean, unless it's like a little self-aware, I guess that's different. But I feel like the randomness is what makes it a musical, really.
Sarah, what do you consider a musical? I mean, like I know you, George, and I, when we were discussing this topic last week, got a little heated about Disney, whether Disney is considered, like certain Disney films are considered musicals.
Yeah, I actually was talking about this earlier today, and I did the thing on Google that I do every week when we are going to talk about a topic. I'm like, what are musicals? Like I've never seen one before, to like look at a bunch of like top ones to remember what my favorites are. And they were like saying like Pitch Perfect and like things like that. And
I
I'm like,
saw that
that's
too.
not a musical. I've decided that a musical is when characters break out of a song, but it's not a performance. Like if you're on stage performing, then that's not a musical. Like they have to be like singing dialogues and monologues for that to be a musical, in my opinion.
Interesting, because I'm in my mind there are some movies like older ones that I would say, oh, they sang and danced on stage, but they also did other ones. So they were like performing in some scenes, but on other scenes they're not performing. So I guess when I read Pitch Perfect too, I was like, that's not a musical.
No,
like I don't know.
Yeah,
it just never
I
came
wouldn't consider
across.
that.
Maybe it's because in my mind, and now I'm thinking about it, because I was going to say, oh, it's original music, but then you look at Mamma Mia, and you're like, never mind, because I consider Mamma Mia a musical. But because it is a musical, it's on Broadway, you know. Yeah,
I mean, that makes it easy. If it's on Broadway, it's a very easy way to say, well, it counts as a musical because they made it into an actual feature. It's like, yes, that would be one. But yeah, I guess like how much of the musical is like artifice and how much are people in the movie actually aware of what's happening. So yeah, Pitch Perfect, I would not count that at all.
So George, what do you consider a musical?
Yeah, I mean, these are all super good points because I definitely thought about the biopics. Like, I remember loving like Walk the Line. You know, there's a little like
that's
Ray,
a good one.
You know, where, you know, because with biopics, it's definitely tough because they are performing them live, but it's definitely like a lot of the times it's telling the story. They're singing it in a different way than the original was, you know, because I know like Joaquin and Reese Witherspoon re-recorded all their stuff, so it was also like re-recordings of songs, and like I think Mamma Mia is definitely an interesting wrinkle, but that one is definitely like further removed because it's not about ABBA. It's just this whole totally different story that uses ABBA songs. But I also like Sarah's point where it's like, yeah, if you're on stage, like if it's diegetic versus non-diegetic, I think that's a good point. It's like, if you have to ask where the music's coming from, probably a musical. If you like know where the music's coming from, then it's a musical moment.
Yeah.
Because then we start getting into like 2001: A Space Odyssey is mostly just music, but like it's not a musical. Like you have to sing for it to be a musical, kind of thing. So I think that's that's a big caveat. Got to sing, but I think the monologue, the dialogue. If you're singing what could be spoken, that's always a good sign. And if you don't know where the music's coming from, as if people would be confused if somebody would start, like if you started singing like in the real world.
So I brought this question up to my family over the weekend, and I have a huge musical background in just musical movies. Both my parents are like huge into musicals, and I grew up watching all sorts of really obscure ones, as well as some of the, bigger ones like Meet Me in St. Louis, Seven Brides for Seven Brothers. I grew up on all that, which is a weird thing to say now, looking back on it, that I watched that at such a young age. But I asked my dad, and I was like, "What is a musical to you?" And he said, "It's a movie that makes you want to sing along." And I was like, okay, I definitely don't want to sing along with Pitch Perfect when I watch that. And I watched that pretty on the regular because, my husband had a shot in Pitch Perfect 2 with Anna Kendrick. So, he's basically a star. But I don't want to sing along with Pitch Perfect. It's not a movie that I watch. But then when I watched My Fair Lady, like you could ask Daryl, we watched My Fair Lady together, and it was his first time, and I'm in the background cooking, and I'm like, I want to dance. And I can't sing at all. So I'm sure Daryl was just loving that performance.
So do you want to sing with Mamma Mia?
Always.
Okay, because that's I'm gonna like Mamma Mia is like, I feel like the middle line.
It's an outlier. Yeah, it's definitely
Across the Universe too. Same thing. The Beatles.
Okay,
that's
a great one.
So it's interesting. We're talking about movies that are not about the Beatles or not about ABBA. They're stories based in their music. That's interesting.
But the music was already, it's popular music. It was already written, because like I don't want to sing along with Walk the Line. I love all the songs. I love all the Johnny Cash songs, but I'm just sitting there like, and then like I rewatched La La Land this weekend as well, and I was just like, singing and belting and crying along with it.
Like Moulin Rouge is like one where it's like, it's all music that exists, but it's like, I'm gonna sing this. I have to.
Oh yeah,
it's the law.
The Elephant Song medley, Love Song medley comes on, and I am like busting out, and I'm like, "Let's go, Ewan McGregor, Nicole Kidman." I always forget to include Moulin Rouge because we were listing all our favorite musicals. And Sarah was like, Grace, you didn't put Moulin Rouge. I literally have a tattoo from Moulin Rouge on my back. And I was like, oh yeah, that's a musical. Just doesn't, I don't know why that one never comes up when I'm thinking. I guess I think of like 1970s musicals or 50s, that's where my head goes to when
classics.
and at White Christmas, but then I also on my list had Mamma Mia and what was it? La La Land. So I like La La Land's musical. I had issues with the plot, but that's my own opinion. So I loved the music though. I loved the music. So rolling on into that, I guess we want to talk about Disney movies, because I feel like Disney movies aren't advertised as musicals. I mean, obviously there are certain ones that like I would say aren't musicals because they don't have any song or dances. But like then you think of like, okay, Frozen. Frozen's a musical, has short numbers. Coco, I thought was a beautiful musical, and that really doesn't have it has like longer numbers, not as many, but longer numbers. Little Mermaid. I mean, you name Beauty and the Beast.
all the
I think
90s Renaissance ones.
Oh
really.
yeah. I think I was looking at AFI's top musical list, and like Beauty and the Beast was on there.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
can't
I'm
remember.
not sure, but I imagine that Beauty and the Beast was probably one of the last
Mary
musicals to
Poppins.
be nominated for Best Picture until, I mean, I'm not sure.
Probably
La La
until
Land.
La La
Chi-
Land.
La La Land, or I think
Chicago.
Chicago, that's
was
right, because
nominated.
Chicago won. That's
Yeah,
right.
it won,
That's, but
okay.
still, that's, over 10 years.
Grease was also, I guess Grease is also, I forget about Grease. Yeah,
I love Grease.
How could you forget about Grease?
I know. So on AFI's top, they only do top 25. They have Beauty and the Beast as the only cartoon I'm seeing. And then they have Mary Poppins, which is a Disney.
Oh, okay. That's
So if you want to
interesting.
get into technicalities. Singing in the Rain is their number one, which is one of my
Of course.
favorites. I love Singing in the Rain. I was reading some like tragic, trivia about Singing in the Rain as I was watching it, and I was like, man, this makes me not like this movie anymore. Because it's basically Gene Kelly was a real like Hitler on set. I hate to compare the two, but like he was so mean apparently to like everybody because he wanted it to be perfect, but he wanted to be mean because he wanted out of a contract.
Oh,
He didn't want to
okay.
work with the production studios
And
anymore.
that was that era at the time, all the
Where you could
big
be
name
an
actors,
asshole.
right? Mhm.
Yeah.
Where A, you could be an asshole, but B, like studios were signing actors
Yeah,
to
you're-
like just their studio for 20
Yes.
films or whatever.
Yes. And so he was I hate to say trying to get out of thing, which is sad because this ends up being his best movie of all time. I mean, it's the one he's most known for. But yeah, so Singing in the Rain, West Side
Prince's route and
Story,
changed his name to a symbol.
Wizard of Oz, Sound of Music. So West Side Story is a big one, which we know we have controversial opinions on. Sarah,
I hated it. It was so boring.
Well, that is an opinion.
that is an opinion, and you are allowed to have it.
We're gonna have to revisit after Spielberg's comes out.
I know. I was
Definitely.
talking to Diggerl and our friend Caitlin, who was on the Star Wars episode. We went and saw In the Heights together, and they were advertising the new West Side Story. And I feel like, and this is a personal opinion, if they'd have just put it in today's day and age, I wouldn't have any issue with it.
Yeah.
Like I flat out wouldn't have, if it wasn't a remake, if it was literally the same movie just set in a different time, I think I would be like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it feels strange to remake that movie, because it feels like remake it exactly how it was. Basically, it's like, why? I don't need the same thing twice.
It's like when they remade Psycho shot for shot. I was like, why?
That's a thing.
Yes. Oh, you did it.
Starring Vince Vaughn.
Vince Vaughn plays Norman Bates.
God,
yeah,
no.
and it's Anne Hesh plays the title character. And it's like really, it's a shot for shot remake. That's what like the big deal was. It was like someone was trying to pay homage to Alfred Hitchcock, which has nothing to do with musicals. So let's stop.
but it's a good point, because it's something that I have an issue with Disney, is that like, why remake Lion King, especially in the way that they did. I mean, and I'm all for like hearing the songs again, I guess, but I also just feel like, and maybe this is what Disney was doing in the first place, like, is this just a big cash grab? Like, the reason Disney movies are musicals is so they can sell the CDs as well, at least in the 90s. And now is that like, but like, and I appreciated, I didn't really like the remake of Mulan, but I appreciated the attempt.
Did they have any music in that one?
No,
I didn't see it.
No,
Okay.
no, it was not a musical, which I appreciated, because it's like, oh, you're gonna remake it and do something different with it, and like, great work. And Mulan already only just has like 3 songs that are 90 seconds anyway, and then they just like give up halfway through.
So that's an interesting point, George. We were talking about Disney films, and I said I don't consider Mulan as a musical because I feel like the songs aren't long enough. And then I like, in my mind, I was like, well, yeah, a musical is like, the music part takes up the whole movie. There's like interjected dialogue, and Mulan does not feel like that to me. I feel like you're right, like it's like a 90-second song and that's it.
And they definitely just stop halfway
Yeah.
through.
Yeah, they really do just stop. Like I think of
They
like
fall off the musical part.
Yeah.
You're right.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
it's
think of
Reflection. The
The
Let's
Man
get
Out of
when
down to
all the
You.
women
business
when
yeah,
all
the
the
opening
women are singing
song.
at the
and
beginning,
the A Girl You're Looking For, and that's it. Oh, and
Yeah.
the one, yeah,
the beginning where they're saying
the very
a girl with
beginning.
a girl with fight. No, what's the one?
Dun,
The-
dun, dun,
They're
dun,
making her
dun,
pretty.
dun, dun,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that one,
Yeah,
the one that you're
yeah.
humming. Yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah, that's
You'll
Whatever
bring
it's
honor to
called.
us all.
all.
There we go.
Yeah,
To us all.
there you
Yes, that's
go.
it.
So
But
there's
it is
4.
it is an interesting choice because I think the music stops. They're even like Yoho singing, and then they like find the massacre.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert! Sorry
Which
for
is
people who haven't
that
seen
scene.
Disney's Mulan.
You
Yeah.
haven't seen.
We
Um,
run by a 2-year rule if you haven't seen
Cool.
it in 2 years.
Okay,
So,
great. Well, this is beyond 2 years,
Yeah.
if my memory serves. So it is impactful, and like the rest is pretty action heavy. So I get why they did it, and so it also brings up a question of just like, are they doing musicals, Disney specifically, like animated Disney, to like keep the kids' attention? It's like if there's like a lag or a boring scene, and we need to like have like slip in some exposition, maybe like have them sing it.
100%.
I
Because
think-
like
I
every
mean-
single kid's show is like
all musical.
song after song after song.
I mean, look at
asking what
TikTok
shape or
right
color
now.
this is, and then another song. So
I mean, I
yeah,
work with kids. You're right. It's all songs. That's how we teach counting. That's how we teach the ABCs. I
it's
mean,
good songs.
the
which is
the
why
biggest song
parents
we
like
have
it.
is Usher singing with Elmo, the ABCs, and it's the best. I love jamming out to Usher, but
The best
I mean, it's
ABCs I've
true.
ever heard.
But like if you look at Frozen, all their exposition is in music. Like they tell
Mm.
the story of the
Mhm.
mysterious river and the tale. It's all through the music. So I wonder if it is like a kid's like, hey, we need to fill up this time to tell you why we're telling you this story. On the note of remakes, and this is just because I was looking at Beauty and the Beast, what did you guys think of the Beauty and the Beast remake?
I never
Because
saw it.
I
It
loved
was-
it, and people didn't like it, I thought, or at least the reception I got was people didn't like it.
I didn't really care for the new songs. Like
I loved the new
felt the
songs.
same way about Aladdin. Like I didn't care for the additions, but I did cry like a baby at the end, even though I knew exactly what was gonna happen.
George,
Yeah.
did you see Beauty and the Beast?
Yeah, I saw it. I mean, I guess I just have this really big deep-seated belief, I guess, that it's like if you're gonna remake something, swing for the fences, you know, like what are we doing here? I don't need to like, I love Beauty and the Beast, and I love Lion King, and I love Mulan, and I love Aladdin. So I don't need to see it 20 years later
The same.
live action, and that's even questionable.
Yeah.
Lion King was animated, it's CG. Most of Aladdin was as well. So like, is this even actually a
And
remake?
you would
So
say the same thing about Beauty and the Beast. Half of them are CG.
Exactly. And so, you know, I think I'm a little grumpy man, like get off
You're
my
allowed to
lawn
be
kind of
grumpy.
vibes about that, where it's just like, even if it was good, it's just like, nah.
It's not the same.
Yeah, I
No,
think that's why like
Or it is
even
the same.
though-
That's the issue.
It's not the same, but it is.
It's the
Yeah.
same.
Yeah, I feel like that's why even though they're not good movies at all, like I prefer like Tim Burton redoing Alice in Wonderland because it was like a completely different story, or like
Yeah.
Christopher Robin was like so good.
Oh,
because
I loved
it
that
wasn't
version.
Pooh Bear again.
Mhm,
No, yeah.
mhm.
I think it's an interesting because, well, one, they are cash grabs and they make
Mhm.
the stories relevant again. And I bet you
Mhm.
anything, it ups the sales of the old movies as well. Because
Oh,
people were like,
absolutely.
oh, I'm going to go watch Beauty and the Beast again. It's an interesting because now that Disney has rights to like all these other properties of like, Lucasfilms and what's the one they just acquired?
Fox,
Fox.
Searchlight Fox.
Fox,
Everything about
yeah.
Fox.
And I put Anastasia on one of my favorite musical lists, and then I was like, oh, that's technically a Disney movie
It's
now.
Disney
Like
now, yeah.
it wasn't Disney when it came out, but
Oh.
and I love that movie. Like, give me
So good.
Rasputin as a villain any day, and Meg Ryan and John Cusack. Oh, I just love it. I'm interested to see what like our next musical will be. Obviously it's West Side Story, but after that there's really, I guess there's that Netflix film that they just advertised, Tick Tick Boom. Is
Yeah,
that
there's
a
Dear Evan
musical?
Hansen. That's coming out at some point.
Oh, that's right,
That
Dear Evan
I forgot
Hansen.
about that one. That
Yeah.
one just got so many negative like feedbacks for the trailer that I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot they were doing that. So I can think of an example or two, but like, where do you guys think that musicals succeed? Like when you're starting off at the storyboard and you're going, this is my story. Now, how do I want to tell it? Like, where do you think that you could go, oh, let's do this as a musical? Like, you know, like, I guess that doesn't really happen anymore. People don't go, I think that's more of a 50s thing, but because musicals at the time were making money. Now they're not, sadly. But like, where do you think musicals, I guess, thrive? George, do you want to start us off in that?
Sure. Yeah. Well, because I feel like when I was rewatching some of these movies, it's almost like completely different sides of the spectrum where it's just like the emotions are so high and so intense that there's literally no other way I can express this without an entire orchestra and me belting it out, which like makes total sense. That's how we celebrate as humans, like a lot of times, music, dance. But what caught my eye or my mind or my ears, all my senses, except for taste, was that I was watching Nightmare Before Christmas, and for whatever reason, this one struck me that like they were all singing their internal monologues, which is super fascinating to me because I mean, at least in film school, you know, script writing 101 is to not have voiceovers, not voice that, like show it, have it be dialogue, and if you're going to do it with dialogue, have it be snappy, you know, like bump 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 bump, cut all the fat. And you know, every time I talk to somebody about their favorite movie adaptations from books, like they're always just like, yeah, it's great, except like they're missing a lot of that internal dialogue that you get to read. Shakespeare used to do it whenever it was okay, where it's like, oh, these characters are just going to monologue out in front of the stage and express to you what they are thinking, and everybody's just like, thank you for that. It adds a lot of depth to the character. Awesome. But for whatever reason, it got out of fashion, and you know, I'm not sure when it was. I mean, because that's film's interesting, that especially since it was silent for so long, that you literally had to show it. So you know, you couldn't really have the internal monologue. You can have dialogue. And then once talkies started, you know, then they, you know, had to record on set. So you really also couldn't do internal stuff either. And so I feel like somewhere along the way, musicals allowed directors and writers to kind of build that depth in that internal monologues are okay if you're singing it. And I just think that's so cool and so rad because it does add depth to the character. It's like, I love to hear the conflict because otherwise it's just like a look. Like, oh, I wonder what they're gonna choose. And instead I'd rather sometimes have a 3-minute song about what they're gonna choose and it rhyme and I get to sing it and play it in my car all the time.
So we've just seen more of that in movies
more
in
of
general.
that.
Just
More of
if you're
that.
having a problem next such a crisis, just please sing it when you're in Ad Astra or something.
Please.
We need more singing in 2001. Is what
Exactly.
You're saying.
Like, I don't know what's going on inside of you. Can you sing it?
Yeah, could you just belt it out, please?
Yeah, so it's not always appropriate
in
but
some like not TV shows, you know, like some TV shows have like their musical episode, like, and they're like, oh, I wish I knew what you were, and that's normally how they lead into the fact that they become musicals. I think it's an interesting point because like Singing in the Rain is a good I guess example of that because they use songs as a plot device, as like, okay, this is what I'm trying to explain to you. Like Good Morning is like, you know, us trying to make him feel better kind of thing, whereas Singing in the Rain is him talking about how he's feeling and it's his internal dialogue. And I think that that's an interesting way to go about it. and even like movies like Disney, like The Hunchback of Notre Dame, like there's so much crammed into those songs because it's a 500-page book that's really depressing, and I got through like maybe 3 paragraphs. So I mean, I'm just thinking about Victor Hugo. Maybe we could, I don't know, have Dune the musical. That way I don't have to read Dune. I'd be about the kid. Okay, we need to call him up. Get
Man, I would love
we
to
need
see that.
Timothy
Yes.
Chalamet dancing around with that nose thing.
I mean, David Bowie was supposed to be in the original, so like
oh my gosh,
that would have
I can
been.
imagine.
We could have had that.
Oh my gosh, I'm so depressed now.
We keep talking about who David Bowie could
Yeah.
have been.
What
in
was the
all
last
these-
What
one?
he could have been.
What
yeah,
were we
it
gonna
was,
be in
it was
a
Blade Runner.
2049?
Lady, yes, that's
He's
what
gonna
it
play
was.
Wallace.
Yes. Oh my gosh,
Gone
so
too
depressing.
soon.
And I think that one of the cool things about musicals is that they do have this feeling of grandeur. Like this is what we as a human beings want out of our world. We want to be the star in our own musical, and we want to have people singing and dancing behind us. And what I like about movies like In the Heights is you feel that, like the scene at the pool, which I know we had some issues with like green screen and things like that, which
Yeah, the green screen was bad.
yeah, it was pretty bad. But the like feeling of like her in her little pool tube, and like the people are singing around her, even like the kid doing his like weird little arm thing, and like the guys behind him. To me, it just was so much fun, and it brought back to me like some of the feelings that like, you know, White Christmas has for me, or Singing in the Rain has for me, with those like grand stage productions of, you know, women with feathers all around, and, you know, like the super classic musical that like in my mind is what I'm picturing.
Well, I love that point, because it's like it's like a metaphor for like how you like we feel inside, like you know, when like you're flirting with someone and they like touch your hand for the first time, that feels like a whole musical number with like feathers and like all of these things. So I think that's one of the things a musical does super well. And like something like La La Land, I mean, it is like, yeah, getting cast, or like getting that thing, or falling in love, and or also just like, I don't know, the deeper thing, metaphor for La La Land, that like Los Angeles is a fantasy world, like this doesn't actually exist, like that extra layer deep that I don't know, just I love how you put that it's the grandeur, it's the show, and it's like, yeah, it's nostalgic maybe in a way.
It also makes a fantastical scene become fantastical,
right?
Like a community pool in Washington Heights.
Totally.
You know, like it makes it this like dream sequence almost, like even like the street scenes when they're dancing and like between buildings, it feels like how do I explain that? Like, I guess fantasy, like even in like West Side Story, you know, when they're doing America and they're on the top of a roof, and it's really just their dresses dancing around and the guys' colorful shirts. That is, it makes it, to me, worth watching a movie for 3 hours. I guess, like I get that feeling of like, yes, this is exactly what I feel like, you know. Oh my gosh, the subway scene in the Heights broke me.
Oh, it's so good.
Ask Daryl. I cried for the rest of the movie.
He did.
Like, I just like full on. I might have been the kidney stones, I don't know, but I was full on weeping. I was like, I can't stop crying.
Yeah, well,
and
Sarah,
there's another hour left.
The same thing about In the Heights, because Sarah and I saw In the Heights together, and Sarah, you were saying like the fact that they added some of those little lanyard things, the fabric or whatever, was
I love the little do where they're playing with like the lightsaber and the I love
like if you're gonna make
in that pool scene, that was amazing.
Yeah, if you're gonna make a stage play or whatever like into a movie, like do it with purpose. Like use that CGI, use that budget, and I love what they did with it.
Yeah, like I love that. That's like the best thing about turning any musical into a movie is that it's like all the things you couldn't do on stage because it's just physically not possible to show. You can all of a sudden do so much cool stuff.
Like
Like
all
Mamma
the blood in
Mia.
Sweeney Todd.
Oh
Mamma
yeah, like
Mia, you get to
all
see
the-
Greece, you know?
Exactly, you get to see
Right,
the
actually see
actual
Grease.
country.
Get to see
Yeah.
Grease,
like-
throats cut, you name it.
See, that's funny too, that like, the poster director for every emo kid that wears too much eyeliner has done so many musicals because like
That's
that
right.
emotion. Like
Mhm.
imagine Sweeney Todd without him singing to his knives, or like
Oh, the
Nightmare
scene
Before Christmas
with
without
Alan Rickman singing, and they're
yeah.
both singing about their
Pretty
women, and
Women.
oh
I
my
love
god,
that so
I'm
much.
like, yes.
Also, like, yeah,
Yeah.
no way they would have gotten away with the costumes and makeup without them
Oh.
singing either. It would just be like, what is happening?
Yeah, because it's really like over the top, the
It's over the
costumes
top.
and makeup in that film, but it works as like, oh, because they're singing, of course,
Yeah.
yes.
Oh my god! And when
That's
Sacha
why.
Baron Cohen shows up in a musical, I'm just so
Ah,
happy.
Yeah.
And
He
I
has
was
such a good voice.
I was rewatching
Yes.
Les Mis, and I like completely like
It's the
blanked
best
on
song.
their
Master of the House is the
characters.
best song.
And I was dying. Like, I was just like, this is so good. And he is so perfect. And she is so perfect. And it just, best song. I agree. There are a couple songs that I like to belt out. Like, I love Empty Chairs and Empty Tables. Like, give me that in my car alone on the highway. And I'm like crying and I'm like singing with Eddie Redmayne. But like, I think musicals have a way of touching our hearts and our like minds and making us think and feel emotions that sometimes movies miss the mark on. And maybe it's because of that internal dialogue, like they're telling us what to think. I don't know. That's interesting.
Yeah,
Because
I mean, humans have such a connection to music that I think I always try to convince all my other artist friends that film is the best art because it combines all of the other arts together. Some of them buy it,
Agreed.
some of them don't. But there's something just to music. I mean, that's why scores exist. That swell of the strings just like suddenly makes you feel a way. So if you add no.
for our audio listeners, George's cat just jumped in the screen.
Just a dark cloud just moving by.
So yeah, I mean, if you add that internal monologue, a human voice on top of it, it's something that's so familiar, and yeah, it's just so impactful. Filmmakers are manipulators, and it's just all the easier with music.
What is everybody's favorite musical? I have to ask.
Oh, Jesus.
Look at my
Let's
list real quick.
yeah. Okay, we'll go with Sarah. Sarah, what's your favorite?
All right. Even though this like might not be my favorite movie on my list, it's gonna be my favorite musical because I can sing every single word to it. It's gonna be Nightmare Before Christmas. Like, it's just so good. The music's perfect. I love like claymation. We already kind of touched on Nightmare Before Christmas because like that just made me want to make movies. Like I like tried to make my own stop motion film in like 7th grade. That lasted for about 45 seconds, and then I was like, man, this is a lot harder than it looks. But like, man, that music, and like it couldn't be anything else. Like I'm just trying to imagine like if there were no music numbers, it would just be like Jack walking through a graveyard looking sad for like 30 seconds and then cut to something else. Like that's like no, it's amazing though. And a lot of fun, and I just think every single one of them so an emo bop.
I love it. Daryl, what's your favorite?
This one's hard
Because I know you didn't like My Fair Lady, so
I like 50% of My Fair Lady.
You liked
I like
the
the
first
song
half.
I knew and the first half of the movie. But I think it's like a very close tie between Chicago and Sweeney Todd, because I remember seeing Chicago the first time in high school and thinking like, oh my god, this is amazing. I would like listen to the soundtrack over and over and over again. That was a movie I feel like it was very formative on me. It like made a very big impression because it was the first musical, like first live action musical that was like, oh, this is like an art form that I just have not even noticed. And then Sweeney Todd was one of the few films where I watched it once and I like immediately watched it again after I saw it because I was like, I bought it on a whim on DVD. I was like, oh, this seems like it'll be fun. And I watched it, I was like, whoa, wait a second. This is just too good. I have to listen to all these songs again. Why is this so perfect? Why is Tim Burton holding out on me? He's making a bunch of random movies, but it also happened to make Sweeney Todd, which is just honestly his best movie. It's his greatest movie. I feel like it's his crowning achievement of film. And don't at me on that because that is a correct opinion.
Please at him on that because that's definitely a controversial opinion because Beetlejuice exists.
It does exist, but it's not Sweeney Todd.
It's not Sweeney Todd.
And Barton Fink.
Actually, Sweeney Todd was my first rated R. Yeah, Sweeney Todd. It was my first rated R. My mom took me to see it, and it was just me and her and another family that brought their children. And I remember being appalled because I left that movie going, that was not a movie for children. But George, what's your favorite musical?
Oh Lord, it's so tough, obviously. But something that I heard from both of y'all was the listening to the soundtracks like afterwards and like how that, I mean, it's probably a chicken and egg situation. Like if you like the music, you'll like the movie. If you like the movie, you like the music and all of that. So I'm trying to think of like, whoa, like which one do I listen to the most? It's tough. Chicago was definitely formative for me because I really felt like as well, because I felt like it used the fact that it was a film in just a brilliant way. The cutting back and forth between reality and it is like a performance, you know, like that. I mean, that's a good one about like, yeah, they're on stage performing, but it's like in this other realm.
They're telling stories. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just like, wow, they really, it made me think like, how would this be done on stage? And which is crazy that was formed on stage. Which leads me into like All That Jazz is one of my favorites, which was written and directed by Bob Fosse, who co-wrote and directed Chicago for stage originally, but it's like an autobiographical, like super crazy fast cuts. I don't know. It's very Martin Scorsese-esque in its whatever drug use and cursing and stuff, but also a musical. But I mean, shit. Sorry, I don't know if y'all curse.
We curse. Don't worry about it.
I'm gonna say shit.
Grace's mom might get mad about it. Shout out to Miss Mary Ellen.
Mary Ellen, I am so sorry. I'm just a guest. I didn't know the rules. I do love La La Land, but that's like for personal reasons. I was living in New York and like trying to be an artist with my partner at the time, and she was an actress, and then we moved to New Orleans and like went our own ways and all of that. So I was just like, oh my gosh,
very
every time I see that
movie,
cry. But honestly, Lion King. I mean, what better movie? It's like, I mean, it's been with me the longest. All of the music is great. I think it like checks all the boxes, like the internal monologue of I want to be a king. Like I just can't wait to be king. That Simba.
Let me kill my father.
And then his dad dies right after. Like it like checks the boxes of like the fact that internal monologue was sung, and then what happened after just like makes everything so much more impactful. So don't hold me to it, but Lion King.
Interesting. I am gonna go with a severely unknown one by everybody here because I was a weird child and grew up on musicals, specifically ones from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. So my mom's was like my mom's favorite was like Meet Me in St. Louis. So that's Judy Garland. Like I have all these formative memories of musicals and watching them. And the most like impactful for me and it's probably why I love history and why I loved Hamilton so much, was I loved 1776, which was a stage play that I don't even think was ever on Broadway. I think it was a, whatever they call off Broadway, I guess, musical, and it stars the guy who plays Mr. Feeney from Boy Meets World as John Adams. So, and I had a huge crush on Thomas Jefferson, the guy who played Thomas Jefferson, and I recently rewatched it. I ended up watching it twice this week because I'm weird. And it has this cool way of spinning the tale of what it's about is about John Adams' struggle to get the Declaration of Independence written and then signed, and the fight that he had to go through, and it, you definitely can see where Lin-Manuel Miranda pulled Hamilton from when you watch it, because it definitely feels very there are certain music, like it's like very waltzy, and like, like let me tell, John Adams why, I want to be a slave owner. Like it's basically, and they take though the letters that everyone wrote and made them into musicals. So like there's a whole section where John Adams is writing his wife, Abigail Adams, and it's literally just their letters back and forth to each other sung. And then there are like the janitor of the Congress, his letters, are written into songs and what they were saying to each other. So a lot of the famous quotes are sung. And I don't know, it's a weird one that I still sing and belt to this day and know every line to the movie. And and Ben Franklin's in there and he's great, and they make sex jokes, and that went right over my head as a child, but now I'm like, oh, that's what they were talking about when the whole song with he plays the violin, like I'm like, oh. But yeah, I think it's just a charming film that literally has no one in it. I'm pretty sure like half the cast was all the original cast. And yeah, it's weird. I'm weird. I'm sorry.
No, I'm realizing now I'd be remiss not to mention also, I mean, on the other side of the weird spectrum, absolutely one of my favorites, and it always grows with me every time I see it, is Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Oh, classic. Yes, agreed.
Weird for very different reasons.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
But weird nonetheless, and I would be so disappointed in myself if I was on a musical podcast as a guest star and didn't mention.
No, but like that's
Rocky
like
Horror
one
Picture
of
Show.
those moments, like that's like a coming of age musical for every kid that was into musicals or theater. Or
That's right.
like you always remember your first time watching the film or your first time seeing it where they're acting it out in front of the film.
Yeah, they literally call them virgins, so you
Yes.
always remember your first time.
Yes, and like I got to see it as a drag show, and
That sounds great.
a great first time, and I will say it was a great first time. So and that's like one of those musicals that I feel like everybody casts themselves in, like, oh, I would definitely play this character, or oh, I would definitely play. Like I remember in theater, when Sarah and I were in theater, we had like a running cast list of who would be perfect to play each role. And
in
Rocky Horror specifically.
Great.
And like we were like, oh, this guy, he would be perfect because he's so quiet, and it'd be so funny to see him as Rocky, like you're like, let's put him in a gold Speedo and see him as Rocky.
So I mean, has everybody seen it here?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So I would be Brad.
Yeah, okay. Daryl would
Okay.
definitely be Meatloaf, so Eddie.
Thank you.
I feel like this is kind of like our spirit animals or something, if that's kosher enough. That
Yeah.
Because I was like, I would be Brad, but I would want to be Frankenfurter.
Yeah. Oh, everybody wants to be Frankenfurter.
Everybody wants to be Frankenfurter. That's right.
Sarah, who would you be?
I really don't know.
You would probably be Magenta. I mean, with your hair.
Well, with the hair, yeah.
Yeah.
No.
I'll go with Janet. I'll be Susan Sarandon.
Great.
If honestly, I would have picked Brad.
Sure, yeah.
Rocky. Maybe Rocky.
You could
How
both
about
be
that?
Brad.
I could be Rocky.
Yeah.
So just pose. On that note, I was going to ask if I can't sing. I flat out can't sing. So like musicals with Rex Harrison are always my favorite because he doesn't sing, he speaks his music. And which is why my
so
favorite.
lazy, by the way.
No, it is not lazy.
So lazy.
Perfect, and it's just how he is. I think that's because now that type of singing is accredited to Rex Harrison. So I think
singing though.
it is singing. It's monologuing.
That kind
to
of
music.
pretending to sing.
It's soliloquizing.
Monologuing to music is how I like to think about it.
I mean, are we gonna call it rapping then? Because I mean, in the Heights and Hamilton.
There you go. See, technically,
Yes, Rex Harrison is rapping. That's what we're saying.
So we've talked about like what makes a good musical moment with like music and the bursting into song and the emotions. Now I want to know what scene from a non-musical movie would you love to see as a song? So let's go with Sarah for the start for this one.
All right. I'm gonna go with my favorite character introduction of all time. And I think it would only be heightened by a song, and that's Captain Jack Sparrow coming in to port in Pirates of the Caribbean, Curse of the Black Pearl with that sinking ship. I just want like a good 90-second ballad from Johnny Depp about everything that's about to go down.
I love
I'm
that.
picturing the musical Camelot. There's an introduction character song for Lancelot, and the song is literally "It's me," but it's him. It's in French. It's "C'est moi," and it's literally like I'm the most important person here, and like that's the entire song.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. I think that's exactly what he'd sing.
Yeah, well, because it would be amazing with like the reveal of that he's on a sinking ship would just be all the more hilarious if he was like singing atop the mast, like epically with swirling shots, and then suddenly it's just like, but
that would be a great moment.
Yeah. An
George,
already great moment. Brilliant.
George, what's yours?
So the first one, and I'm sticking to it, I was going back and forth. It's Lord of the Rings. It's a King Theoden speech, and I was going back and forth between Helm's Deep, Ride to Ruin, or Pelennor Fields, where he screams death at the end. And I think I'm going to go with Pelennor Fields. I mean, Lord of the Rings is already kind of what we talked about beforehand, where it's just like, oh, so your internal monologue is going to be an external monologue now? Great, cool. But if he sang it, I mean, he's given a speech to a bunch of dudes and one woman and a hobbit on some horses about to charge into death. Like, if that man started singing, like, it's already like I want to get up from my seat and like onto the horse, like ready to go already. That if there was a tune to it, oh my goodness gracious. Like, can you just imagine him? I mean, I already like yelled death, like death back at the screen. If I could belt death, like what a showstopper. Like, this is actually like the opposite of Sarah's choice, where it's just like intro scene. What about the outro scene? Like, he's going in for Ride, for Ruin, and then just it would be it would be an Oscar winner. Best music, best original song, best actor, the end.
Just
something I didn't know I needed until today is Lord of the Rings, the musical. Please.
I want that so badly.
Well, and in the books, there's so many songs anyway that it's like, it's halfway there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just needs a catchy tune now.
That's it.
I when I read this question in our like talk through before recording, and for everybody to kind of think about this, everybody guessed mine. I'm so mad that
Go
I'm
for it,
so
Gracie.
predictable. But mine would definitely be Quinn's monologue scene from Jaws. And I just think that Jaws, the musical, which I'm sure exists somewhere, like I'm sure some kid in college made that somewhere. But if American Psycho exists, I know Jaws has to exist. Like, but I'm just three dudes on a ship and like singing. That like gives me Gene Kelly vibes. That gives me Danny Kaye vibes. Like I'm ready. Like let's go. Brody can be the silly character. You know, I just Quint with the down light singing about him. You know, once you go in, 3,000 men went into the water, only 200 and whatever came out. You know, like I just that would be great as a musical. And I'm already thinking about it that if it doesn't exist, I'm gonna write it. So I need
Please
a
write that for
composer
me.
friend now. But Daryl, what would yours be?
So mine is because I think you said Adrian Brody earlier, and I was like, it immediately made me think of one specific movie I've watched recently, and I was like, if King Kong were a musical, and but King Kong is the one singing, like the moment where he's like chained up at the theater, like if he could just have his moment, just like step aside, tell the audience how he thinks through song,
I'm in
but like.
chains.
But he has like an operatic voice. It's just like it's like amazing, and he's just singing about being in chains, the indignity of it all, and then kind of like it's very like the music gets like quieter and quieter, then it starts to swell. He's like, "I'm going to break these chains," kind of thing.
He breaks them.
Yeah, and he just starts
Yes.
singing as he's like throwing things around, throwing people around, picking up women, and like that's not who I'm looking for. I'm throwing you away. Like that would be. Like, so first of all, the King Kong musical does exist, but he doesn't sing. Apparently.
Oh, okay. Different vibe.
Yeah,
Different
so
vibe.
I just want Kong to sing, only Kong, and if Jack Black was in it as well, he could also sing. I'm cool with that.
That would be cool. Jack Black in the musical too. Like that would be really
Yeah,
cool.
I would love
he would
that.
bring like a whole like Tenacious D element to
Man,
it.
we didn't even talk about a lot of like comedy musicals, but
No.
Tenacious D is up there for me.
Oh, so good.
Yeah.
And the
Oh, my-
producers.
The producer. Oh my gosh,
Give
Springtime.
me
with
Will
Hitler.
Ferrell any
Oh,
day of
yeah.
the week.
I mean,
did,
Daryl, I know you South Park and Team
Yeah,
America.
South Park.
I mean, Scott, the silliest things are musicals.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
so good.
And that's why they're the best.
Like,
That was like my third choice. South Park.
I like every time we were talking about like TV shows with musical numbers, Family Guy comes to mind because
Oh, yeah.
Seth MacFarlane has such a love for musicals, and it's
Mhm.
always for musicals that I grew up on. So he like references like, what was it? There's a version of the song from I think it's Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, where it's I can't think of the original title, but his version is a bag of weed, and it's talking about legalizing the weed, and it's just a bunch of like guys with like their hats and like a bag of weed. And I just think it's so great because like you could only do that in musical numbers. And speaking of My Fair Lady, Stewie is based off of Rex Harrison, so specifically his character from My Fair Lady. So just wanted to throw that out there. So
Interesting how Stewie actually sings, though.
No, that's because Seth MacFarlane can actually sing.
He can. He has a beautiful voice, honestly.
I
like
love
just
his
him
Christmas
singing
album
just
is so
normally. He's really good.
And that's why I to this day will always say Family Guy is my favorite because I think Seth MacFarlane just gets me in my like comedic and movie and musical love. So but you were talking about Spider-Man the musical, and we were joking about that, and now I am picturing Avengers the musical, and I want Iron Man and Captain America fighting while they're singing on opposite sides of the stage, and they're like doing their action moves, like that's in my mind now. Like I'm gonna have to see that
Ooh.
eventually.
Loki needs a song.
Oh, Loki.
Loki needs a song really badly.
And like that's perfect because I could see Loki singing in like the actual movies.
Yeah, like
Like,
that would be
yeah.
perfect.
him put on like a musical jazz number, you know, like that.
Oh, it would definitely be. It would be called Low Key Loki when he's sneaking around,
Oh yeah,
being mischievous. I'm just low key, don't look at me. And then he stabs someone.
And he stabs someone. I love it. All
He's got
right,
his
so
little
we need to
backup
pitch
bandage
this to
behind him.
Marvel.
Let's get him on the phone.
Kevin Feige, where are you?
Where are you?
I have your next big hit.
Oh my goodness. Do you guys have any like favorite adaptations from musical? Because we've talked a lot of movies that were like movies first and then they became musicals. What about musicals that became movies? What's your favorite adaptation? I would have to say mine's Mamma Mia, because in my mind it doesn't make sense on stage. Like it only makes sense as a movie. And maybe that's because I've never seen it on stage, but like I don't understand how you can have something set in Greece and not see Greece. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I don't know. What about you? Do you guys have, I mean, I know we talked about Chicago. That would probably be on y'all's list.
I mean, that's definitely the top one for me in terms of turning it into a movie, because it's just I can't fathom what the actual musical is. Like I can only see the movie because it's so iconic to me.
Yeah, I think I'd probably throw that one out there as well for me. My university put Chicago on, and it was great and it's good, and they have some of those elements where they didn't conjure up this idea of the performance world versus what's actually happening themselves for the movie that does exist in the musical in and of itself. But it's just with the match cuts and all of that, the sets, the costumes, like everything they do, like making the jail cells part of the musical set. I mean, gosh, Velma's I Can't Do It Alone, like the cuts back and forth between that. It's just like I really I would have trouble. Granted, I don't have the classics in my head as much as you do, Gracie, but I'd be hard pressed to find a musical film that originated on stage that does it better. I mean, other than Cats.
Oh yeah, Cats, perfect.
The only true musical,
the purest one of all. Though I do appreciate. I mean, Les Mis. I mean, granted, it was a book first, but then it was a stage musical. But I do appreciate that Tom Hooper tried to record the vocals live on set, as opposed to in the studio and then filming it. I applaud that. I mean, I have issues with the movie, but I mean, if only for Anne Hathaway's performance, I appreciate that.
Well, even just in costuming alone, I think it's so gorgeous. Les Mis.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just musical costumes in general. Like we could talk about that in a whole episode on itself.
Yeah, then give them a Hollywood budget.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, look at that. Imagine that.
Weird.
Man, I feel like I haven't seen very many musicals. Like, actually, the two musicals that I've seen outside of like what my college has put on have been Wicked and Book of Mormon. So neither of those are movies yet, but I'd love to see them. So I guess Sweeney Todd. Like, I feel like that was just, it was so Tim Burton that it had to be Tim Burton, and I love that it's Tim Burton.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
I think there's a different element being able to see the blood and gore up that front. And
yeah,
I think the best adaptation of Sweeney Todd is the one where they actually stabbed somebody by accident. Like that was great. I don't remember. That happened a couple years ago, and I remember them going, "Oh my god, man stabbed on stage, thought it was prop, actually had to be rushed to hospital." Like they like missed the spot that they were supposed to like aim for, and the guy got cut like right in the jugular. That's like fear for every theater kid.
Absolutely.
Especially because you know that knife was dull.
Rocky Horror again. Sorry, I'm gonna call it back again. Rocky Horror was a stage play first, and almost all of those people were the originator of the roles on West End.
I didn't know that.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Ooh, Rent.
Oh.
Sorry.
Rent does make for a good adaptation.
We haven't even talked about Rent. That was like one of like the renaissance of musicals in Hollywood for a while.
Renaissance.
Haha.
We're gonna have to do a part 2.
When I saw In the Heights, one of my friends that I saw it with, she mentioned that the owner of the salon, the actress who plays her, was the originator of Mimi from Rent.
Mimi, yes.
Yeah. Stage. So I
learned that today.
So cool. So cool. And I mean, I don't know. It shows she has the musical chops, obviously.
Oh yeah. She's fantastic. And I Rent was one of those, I went through a Rent phase in like sophomore and freshman year of high school. So, you know, I'm pretty sure like every theater kid has like a Rent phase. I don't know. I feel like every theater kid has a Rent phase.
Yeah.
That's definitely one that like I wish I could see on as a theater play. Like I've never been able to see it as a play. I would love to see that, because to me, I feel like they didn't go as grand as they could have in that film. Does that make sense? I feel like it was super reserved in what they could have done. Like the best scene is like the scene where he's Britney Spearsing it up in Arizona, you know, singing his like rock song in his, you know, his Cadillac or whatever. You know, that's like the most grandiose, I guess. And La Vie Boheme, which is more just grandiose because it has a lot of people in that singing.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think I would love to see the blocking, especially with the apartment building and stuff, like see what catches your eye as opposed to what the camera wants. Like that's like the benefit of a stage performance. It's like your eye can move wherever you want it to be. I mean, of course the director is doing the blocking and stuff, but no, I'm with you. I feel very similarly, where it's like musical theater folks that I was with loved Rent when it came out. Everybody that I've talked to that has seen the stage performance like scoff at the movie.
yes, and that's like the thing is like I want to be able to scoff at the movie.
You're exact. I want it to. I want to be like those people.
in the in crowd. Yeah. But okay, guys, I have a final question, and it's the most important one. If you could be, what's your dream role in a musical? Let's just throw it out there. If you could be in a musical, anybody, lead, not lead, whoever, who would you be?
And specifically dream role, not like actually how I sound when I sing.
No, dream role, please. Dream role.
Dream role. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
All right, Daryl, what is your dream role?
I actually had a different answer earlier, because earlier I was thinking I'd love to be Alan Rickman's character from Sweeney Todd, because I was like, yes, of course, being Alan Rickman. However, there's actually one specific role that when I was in high school I wanted to play. I didn't get a chance to play. It's Mr. Applegate from Damn Yankees, and he's Satan in Damn Yankees. And I really wanted to play that character, but I can't sing, so I couldn't play him. But it's like, if I could sing, I would love to play him, just because I love his songs. He's the devil. It's like the devil's a fun character to play. So that would be mine. Just like I'm sitting here just thinking about like how much I missed I missed my chance in high school to do this because I couldn't sing, and I'll never get over it now. It'll be the last thing I think of before I die is I could have been him. I could have been in that. My life would have been so different. And then I die.
Yeah, right. I feel like mine, I have two that come to mind. Well, I have a lot, but because my sister and I used to just like go back and forth, like, oh, you be the guy, you be the, lead, like
Mm-hmm.
she would, and she can actually sing. So, she always got first dibs. But I always ended up being like the villain or, like the side character or something. And in Hunchback of Notre Dame, which is now a musical on off Broadway. So I've been like listening to that track a lot. But even in the Disney version, I Want to Be Clopin, which is the jester, like gypsy guy that does all the narrating for the film. Either him or Frollo. And that's just because I love Hellfire. I love singing that. That's like on top of like my lists of songs to belt in the car. And yeah, that's definitely my dream role. Is Frollo. Let me be the priest.
Just for that one song.
Just that one song.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a juicy character in itself, because in the Disney movie they make him a judge, but in the original he's a deacon. He's the deacon of Notre Dame, so it's even more creepy because he's a priest. So it just adds another level of creep. So
yeah,
it's like it's more relevant. Great.
Like I want to be Rasputin. I always want to be like evil characters.
Of
That's
course.
always been me. Yeah,
They're the best.
They have the greatest songs for sure.
Definitely. All right, George, what about you?
Well, yeah, similarly, I had like two in mind, but when you talked about that one showstopper song, I'm gonna go with three. Here we go, taking all the time I want. Rizzo from Grease for that one song. I would love to be Rizzo. She's such a deeper character. Like that, Grease is such a shallow musical, but Rizzo is just like the one real one saying the real shit, and I love that. One of my other gut ones just was one I mentioned before, Dr. Frankenfurter, just because like what a character arc, just like greatest intro and greatest outro song. Like, are you kidding me right now? With crazy stuff in between, like the Brad and Janet sex scenes and stuff. Like, I don't know. It's just like, what a fun role. But if I'm going to stick true to one answer, and I've already mentioned Rocky Horror, so I won't have to interrupt anybody again. I'm going to go with Willy Wonka, Gene Wilder's version, Willy Wonka.
I like that.
I would love to play that role. I definitely have some Peter Pan syndrome going on sometimes, and I just feel like, what a weird, cool role. And he has a couple of songs, but I mean, pure imagination's brilliant. Kind of crazy, you don't know what's gonna happen, but really wholesome,
the tunnel scene,
and warm and empathetic. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just like, I don't know, I mean, I know Gene Wilder carries that movie, and I would like, if I'm gonna do a dream role, I'm gonna be the star, obviously. But yeah, I just think what a cool character to sink your teeth into, and can be taken in so many different ways. But the way I would take it is closer to the Gene Wilder way for sure.
Timothy Chalamet is a lucky guy. He's going to be playing the latest iteration of Willy Wonka. So
he's so hot right now.
So hot.
Yep. And the movie that nobody asked for.
No one asked for a new Willy Wonka, but we're getting it. All right,
well, George's
Sarah.
in it. I'll watch that.
That's true. I would watch it if George was in it.
Nice.
Sarah, what's your dream role? Let's throw it all together. What you got?
I am gonna make my inner goth girl proud, and I was between two. My first thought was Mrs. Lovett, because I know I can't sing that high, but I try my best every time I listen to that album. But I'm gonna go with Sally. She just holds something special in my heart, and I would love to be the live action version of her.
That would be so much fun. That would be a cool role, because you could add the doll-esque kind of Frankenstein level to that character. So a live action version of her would be really cool.
Yeah, the costume would be really cool.
Yeah.
Now I can't stop thinking about that.
Yeah, and her song was always my least favorite, but every time I watch that movie, I'm like, okay, Like, oh, okay. I every time I watch it, Sally's song gets me harder and harder. And I don't
See,
know,
I
maybe
like
it's changed.
Oogie
I don't know
Boogie.
what it is, but I'm like, okay, yeah.
Oogie Boogie's great. And
I
then
always wanted to be Oogie Boogie because he was like a
The
bug.
bad guy. The
Yeah,
big
he was the
bug.
bad guy.
He's the bad guy.
I just always want to be. I find bad guys to be the richest characters. I just like let me throw Santa Claus on a casino belt and sing my song with my bugs.
if Lock, Shock, and Barrel had a bigger part, maybe one of them. I do. love-
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
Lock, Shock, and Barrel would be really cool. Now I just want a live action.
I'm
Yes.
gonna
And you know
go
what?
watch it. Like
I
right
don't want
after
it,
this.
but I want it. That's the sad thing. It's like the Hercules movie that they're trying to make. I'm like, I don't want it, but I also want it.
Yeah.
Well, I
Yeah.
definitely want a Nightmare Before Christmas stage musical.
Yes.
There
I
we
don't
go.
think
That'd be
I don't want a
great.
movie one because the movie one again is perfect, so we don't need to remake it, right?
I'm about that.
Correct. But I would
about it.
totally see that on stage.
Well, I think that's all the time we have today. I know a lot of us, we could talk about musicals forever. And if anybody wants to talk musicals with us, feel free to reach out. If you want to reach out to me to talk about those weird, obscure 50s, 70s musicals, my name is Gracie, and you can find me at Gracie May with a Y and 3 E's on anywhere you see fit. Daryl, where can we find you if we don't want to talk about musicals at all?
You could talk about musicals with me on social media if you wish. I can't guarantee I'll answer or know how to respond in a smart way. But you can find me on Twitter at DarthDarrell. That's Darth, D-A-R-T-H, as in, Darth Vader, Maul, Sidious, take your pick, and Darrell, D-A-R-R-E-L-L. Also, you can find me on Letterboxd, too, at DarthDarrell as well. So you can friend me there, I guess, whatever it is people do on that.
And Sarah, what about you?
I am on Instagram at snotty.person and on Twitter at snotty_person. I'm also on Letterboxd, just snotty person, and all three of those are snotty with an I-E, not a Y.
All right, George, is there anything you'd like to plug?
Oh, no, not really. If you'd like to talk about musicals and why so many characters were looking through reflective glass and in the Heights, because that really intrigued me, you can reach out to me at georgesilvertooth@gmail.com or at cats.of.nola on Instagram. Alternatively, you could just look at some cool cat pictures that I interviewed some street cats in New Orleans. They have really crazy stories and I love them.
I love it. And if you want to check us out on any of our social medias, we are the Popcorn Bucket List on Instagram and at TPB_podcast on Twitter. And or you could just search us like normal people and just like look up our name and we'll pop up. If you want to tune into our YouTube channel to see all our beautiful faces, George and I cut out a lot in this one, so have fun with that. Whoever's editing this, cough, cough, Sarah. We upload the video version of the podcast on Fridays, and that's the Friday after the Wednesday we post. So that was really confusing, and I look forward to next week. And I wish I could sing because I would sing you guys an outro.
Thank you so much for having me as a guest.
No problem, George. You were great, and I look forward to having you on again so we can talk more, movies and all sorts of. Maybe we'll do another musical episode. I don't know. We'll have fun.
Musical episode, or if y'all have a Paul Thomas Anderson episode, y'all give me a ring.
Yeah. I got to catch up on some of his films anyway, so I can read my book that I bought on him finally.
The only person I know who buys a book about a director and hasn't seen any of his movies.
Oh, of course. I've seen like 4 of them. I've seen half of them in reverse order. So yeah, I can't even start from the beginning.
Love it. All right, guys. Well, I'll check y'all out next week. See ya. Bye.
Bye.
I'm waving like I'm in a